G'day ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? Scotty49 here with you once again for another installment in the How to Play Warhammer 40,000 series. Now this is the 10th video in this series where we've been talking about the different ways you can play the game, how to build your army list and what's involved, as well as the turn and everything that's involved in actually playing the game. Now this video is the 10th one in this series and we are going to be covering the charge phase. It's a very exciting phase of the game where you're able to get into hand-to-hand combat with your opponents and do some fun stuff as well. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it, if you have not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy this content, please feel free to do so. We are almost at 100 subs. Getting that custom URL would be huge this year, and so I really appreciate your support in being able to do that. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Alrighty, so let's jump into the charge phase. Now the charge phase is broken up into two different stages with several advanced rules that you can interact with throughout the phase as well. Now these two different stages are the charges and heroic interventions. So for charges, during your charge phase, you can select any of your units that are within 12 inches of an enemy unit or multiple enemy units at the start of the charge phase to be able to declare a charge against during the turn. Now remember that any units that have made any fallback or advanced moves during the movement phase, or units that are still within engagement range of enemy units, aren't actually eligible to make charge moves this turn. When you do select an eligible unit, you must select one or more enemy units that's within 12 inches of that selected unit to be the target of the charge. Now you can select multiple units, but there's going to be rules into whether your charge is successful or not based on how many units you also select as we get into those elements a bit later on here. So then once you've chosen the targets, you then make a charge move. Now a charge move is just rolling 2d6, and that is the maximum number of inches that the models in the chosen unit can make a charge move with. Now for the unit to be able to make a charge move, the charge roll must be far enough to be within engagement range of every selected enemy unit whilst maintaining that unit's unit coherency, as well as not entering engagement range of any enemy units that you didn't declare a charge against. So I know there's a bit there, so we're going to break it down. So you have to be able to get within that 1 inch engagement range of the selected enemy units. You can't cross other enemy units' engagement range when you didn't declare them as the targets of the charge, and you also have to be able to reach each unit if you declared against multiple units whilst maintaining unit coherency. I did cover both engagement ranges and unit coherency in the movement phase video previously. If you do need a refresher on that, please feel free to go back and watch that video as well to understand what I'm referring to here. If the charge roll allows for all of these conditions, then the charge is successful. However, if it does not meet any one of those conditions, then the charge fails and the charging unit cannot make the charge move. That's pretty straightforward for charges. Now we're going to get into something that's a bit more nuanced, and that's heroic interventions. Now what heroic interventions are is after all the charges have been made by yourself, your opponent actually is able to then make heroic intervention moves. Now what a heroic intervention move is that it can only be performed by a unit with a character keyword. And so for a character to be eligible to make a heroic intervention, the character must not be within engagement range of an enemy unit already, and it has to be within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of an enemy unit. Now, a heroic intervention move allows the chosen character to move 3 inches, but it must end its move closer to the closest enemy unit possible. Now, each character can only perform one heroic intervention during the charge phase, so it means during your opponent's charge phase, your characters can only make one heroic intervention every turn for your turn, and then during your charge phase, your opponent's characters can make one heroic intervention if they are eligible, that is. You get to choose to perform a heroic intervention with as many or as minimal character keyword units as you'd like, if they meet the requirement to do so. So this is completely optional whether you actually perform heroic interventions or not. there are actually 3 different advanced rules that directly relate to the charge phase, and these are charging over terrain, the fly keyword, and charging, and overwatch. So we're going to start with charging over terrain, very similar to how you do movement over terrain. So when models are making charge moves, unless otherwise stated, they can move over terrain but can't move through terrain. Now, if the terrain feature is above 1 inch in height, then you need to account for any vertical distance that the models make as a part of their charge move. This includes movement both up and or down, and the models cannot finish their charge move mid-climb up a building, for example. So you can't only have 2 inches left of movement to try and get up to the next level, and you can't stop there. You have to get the 3 inches to get to the next level, for example. Now, if because of terrain, the charge is unable to be successful because you don't have enough movement or the terrain is actually impeding you with movement penalties, then the charge unfortunately fails. Next, we have the fly keyword and charging. Very similar to movement, units with the fly keyword are allowed to move across other models as if they weren't there when making a charge move, but they cannot finish their charge move on top of another model. The difference when it comes to their movement is they must move over terrain features as if there were any other model when making a charge move. So it means that a part of the fly keyword allows them to ignore any vertical distance they move in the movement phase. However, in the charge phase, they don't get that benefit. And the last advanced rule is overwatch. This is a fun thing for your opponent to do and for you to do when you're getting charged. There are certain rules that allow units to make shooting attacks against a unit that is charging it, which is called overwatch, funnily enough. There are going to be multiple rules in the game. There's a stratagem that allows you to do it. There's other abilities that allow you to do it as well as other stratagems that impact various other aspects of Overwatch. Now, a unit cannot fire Overwatch if they have any enemy units within engagement range of it. So if you've already taken a charge and you're already engaged in melee and another unit wants to charge in, you can't Overwatch that unit. So generally, if you're going to want to Overwatch, you're going to want to Overwatch against the first unit charging you, and there's a bit of a nuance there where some players will actually declare a charge with a bait unit to bait out the Overwatch and then have the unit they really want in to go into combat to get into combat after you've already burnt the Overwatch, whether you're successful with the first charge or not. Overwatch is resolved before any charge rolls are made against the unit that they are attempting to charge, and the shooting attack is like any normal shooting attack that uses all the normal rules for shooting. However, these shooting attacks only hit on unmodified hit rolls of 6s. Now, there are rules that will interact with that by saying that they hit on unmodified 5s, etc. Once you have gone through all your charges you're wanting to do, once your opponent's done all their heroic interventions that they wish to perform, you then get to move on to the fight phase. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, I hope that I've given you a clear and understandable explanation of the charge phase, what's involved in selecting a unit and being able to declare a charge, as well as what's involved when making charge moves and the conditions you need to meet, as well as how heroic interventions work and the advanced rules that relate to each of the different areas of the charge phase as well. Now, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comment section below, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting a like on this video as well, as it would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you don't want to ask questions here, that is fine. Feel free to come over to my Twitch channel when I'm live on Tuesday and Friday nights and Saturday afternoons Australian Eastern Standard Time, where I do hobby sessions, live games, and feel free to ask your questions live there. But also, if you don't feel comfortable asking there either, feel free to check out my Discord below, where we've got over 110 members in there now from all across the globe, where we're happy to answer any questions you have relating to any part of the hobby, not just the game involved, where we talk about the hobby progress we're doing, the games that we're playing, events we're going to, and the like as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.